So, welcome back and a very good evening to all you wonderful viewers watching on the YouTube platform of Universal Mentors Association, our first digital BFSI Virtual Summit 2022. Um, this is the last panel of the day, and this is one of the most important panels of the day because we've all been wondering about the scope of digital payments, and we are discussing it with the stalwarts of the BFSI sector. We have with us a huge panel wherein we'll be talking the nitty-gritties of the digital payment scope in the post pandemic era. We would like to inform that India has been or is the second largest country in the world to be using digital payments, only after China. So I think that is one feat that we have achieved tremendously, and technology has played some amazing, role in achieving this. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the wonderful panel that we have with us. Firstly, I would like to introduce the moderator, Mr. Kamaljeet, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Manipal Business Solutions. Welcome, sir. Mr. Jatinder Mohan Singh Shah, who's the CEO, SME and Payments from Fincare Small Finance Bank Limited. We'll shortly be joined by Mr. Jitendra Mahapatra, who's the DVP and Head, Model Risk Management, Financial Modeling and AI Co. From Axis Bank. I would like to welcome Mr. Kunal Khatpal, who's the Chief Risk Officer of Hinduja Leyland Finance, Mr. Anil Sinha, who's the Chief Technology Officer from Early Salary, Mr. Dipesh Karki, who's the co-founder and CTO of Lane Then Club. Welcome to all. I think this is called the superstar of panel discussions when we are talking about the BFSI segment, having such amazing speakers on board. It's been an honor for the platform of Universal Mentors Association to welcome all the stalwarts of the sector on one single panel. So I'll not take a single second more. I'll ask Mr. Kamaljeet to please take away the session, being the moderator of this amazing panel. This panel was supposed to start 10 minutes earlier, but we can accommodate it. We can push it, to it was supposed to end at 5:30, but we can go up to 5:45 as well. So over to you, Kamaljeet sir. Please take this session away. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
On board.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep, for organizing it. I am also very excited to be on this panel, and people with the right experience and with all the variety of companies, from small finance banks to fintechs to lend-in organization P2P. They are all on the panel. So I'm also very excited to hear their views on one of the hottest topics in the BFSI industry, which is digital payments, and specifically in the post-pandemic era. So also would like to thank the audience who have joined this session. So I really want to thank you for joining in. Please do stay tuned in, because I know in the digital mode it is very easy. We have multiple screens running and we switch screens. But please do stay tuned in and do ask questions from the panel. We have a lot of time available at the end, and we would love to hear your questions. So getting started with the panel discussion, digital payments, right? It's one of the hottest topics in the BFSI industry. We have, according to the numbers I have seen, in the last 2 years, we have grown rapidly. In fact, we have become the world champions. I think even if you believe some numbers, we have beaten even China actually, right? Just to get started, maybe with Jatinder, from a payment bank point of view and small finance bank point of view, what do you think has been the contribution of these two types of banks in this growth of digital payments in the country in the last 2 years?
Thanks, Kamaljeet. Well, in fact, I believe that if you look at the focus and the segmentation of the small finance banks or even the payments banks, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to, maybe collate the underserved segment of the country and get in the, the pointers of financial inclusion in the right spirit. If you look at, prior to 2000 and say 15, there was no concept of a micro ATM. Micro ATM as a concept came in 2014, 15, and then after demon, it became a very interesting aspect. And today, you're looking at 28,000 crores of volume, which is actually passing through the micro ATM network. And this is a network which is very important because, in cities like in Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, you may be sitting and you want to withdraw cash. It's very easy. You can go to an ATM and access it and just do that activity. But when you're in the rural area, the nearest ATM is 15 kilometers away from you. So how do you do that? So from a cash out perspective, I think this is one technology which is very, very, rampant now. Second is, I think, with thanks to NPCI, because the way the Aadhaar network was fully utilized in the AEPS technology, which is Aadhaar enabled payment services. Again, if you don't have a card and you have your Aadhaar number linked to your bank account, use your thumb and take out the cash. So restricting myself to what I think the payments bank and the small finance banks have been able to do, they've been able to get this, about 7 to 8 million, customers, which primarily belongs to the small finance bank, because these are primarily microfinance, customers, with an average salary or with an average, ticket size of anywhere between 5,000 to 50,000 to about 1 lakh. And the payments bank on the other side, I think what they have been able to do is, in the tier one, tier two, where the small finance bank may not be focusing much, they've been able to get the financial inclusion piece from a digital payment perspective in a very, very fast mode. And today, and sometimes, we may say, if we just look at last 2 years of what has actually happened during the corona period, a lot of adaptation. We were fighting it out in the market that, let's go, without the wallet and all that stuff. But today, if you see in last 2 years, the experience has been that even, the generation which was not very conducive to the digital technology, today everybody is ordering. Everybody wants to tap their card, or everybody is very comfortable in utilizing the wallet. So I think all of these factors, and along with the government push, direct benefit schemes going into the accounts directly, I think all of this has been a great, great boon as far as digital payments are concerned. And I am a very, very strong proponent of digital payments, that actually helps the economy to flourish in the right manner. So I believe the payments bank and the small finance bank has been able to do their bit, but it's a very, very long journey, because we are talking about some 750 million, customer set, for which, the digital inclusion, is the right way to go, and it will take maybe 5 to 7 years more to get at least 30-40% of these guys in. And India is a large country, so you can just imagine the humongous amount of volume we are talking about. 28,000 crores is not even a tip of the iceberg, but good start has been done, and I assume that this will take another 5 years more with all of us, and many more banks which RBI is thinking about, the digital bank they are thinking about. So I think that will be a good start to have. Over to you,
Great,
sir.
great. Thanks, Jatinder. Anil, over to you. From an early salary point of view, what is your organization's involvement in digital payments? And also, what do you think has the pandemic led to increase in adoption of digital payments? How has the pandemic led to this increase?
Yeah. So let me briefly cover about what organization do, and then we'll cover how how the digital payment has helped us, or how we influence that. So we are primarily into fintech lending space, and we primarily cater to young to mid age group customers. We aim to solve all the financial need for this particular set of customer, and we have got four different line of the customer services or business, you can say. One is the short-term cash loan, which range from 3 months to up to 3 years. And then we have a card program. The card, you can use that card all across the India. Then we have a embedded financing, basically buy now pay later, where we have a tie-up with 5,000 plus merchant, where merchant services can be offered as an EMI. And we are primarily into insurance, education, and hospital. So for example, if you're buying insurance from, let's say, Max Group, and they offer you an EMI, that EMI is backed by early salary. Similarly, fourth category that we have is we have a tie-up with corporate. where what we are offering is that we are offering their employee a solution to withdraw their salary multiple time in a month. What does it mean is that, let's say, as an employee, if I'm earning 1 lakh rupees, so on 15th of the month, I can withdraw, let's say, 50,000 of my salary, so that some of the short-term need can be solved. And all these require a strong digital connect with all type of partnership. All these transactions are kind of a payment. Let's say disbursement can happen on the midnight. That means we have a very strong network of connection with IMPS gateway. So even if somebody in the midnight, request for transfer, it will go through that. And similarly, a customer can make a payment to us anytime. There's a 24/7 service available, right? So that in yeah. So this is the entire ecosystem where we do almost like 300 crore disbursement and 300 crore repayment every month, and everything happen through digitally. No single physical center that we have. In terms of how pandemic has changed that, and before going to that, I would probably say one aspect of any change is the driver, and second is the event. I would say the government has been the biggest driver in digital adoption in India. Like for example, UPI has been one of the biggest innovation, and then government is actually positioning itself that making India as a leader in the fintech ecosystem, and I think we are going the right path. So this allow us, for example, RBI coming up with a lot of rules, regulation, framework, which allow all this thing, digital innovation happening in the country. For example, UPI onboarding by the merchant, digital KYC and all. So I think this ecosystem, this driver is helping. Now, event like, for example, the first event was demonetization. That started the adoption of digital payment. People started understanding it. And then pandemic lasted for almost 2 years or more than that. This almost enforced everyone to go digital. So for example, today we go to even a street vendor buy to let's say take a cup of tea or eat golgappa. We can make a digital payment, we can make a payment through UPI. So I think this has itself so the widespread adoption. Now coming back to what Mr. Jitendra said, still we have a large way to go. Since India is a big country, we have a rural population, we have a semi-urban population where still need lot of penetration. I think some of the thing what is happening in the country, for example, Reliance coming up with this affordable smartphone, affordable data, and then the rural population itself is becoming a lot of young people, young generation who are actually mobile savvy or they are educated. So this will another open up a lot of opportunity for the penetration for the digital payment. As for us as a business, more and more people becoming digital is that means more and more people can easily avail our services. That's how I take it.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Anil. Moving on to you, Dipesh, as the CTO of P2P NBFC FinTech, again, what is your view? What is your involvement in the digital payment space? First of all, how does it enable your business? And then specifically, looking forward in the future in the post-pandemic world, what are the new technologies that you believe we are going to see in the next 1 to 3 years that are going to change or further improve the digital payments experience?
Thanks, Kawaljit, for two wonderful questions. How we are using, digital payments and how the digital payment is going to evolve over the next few years, right? So, first I'll talk about the role of digital payment in Lending Club, right? As of today, Lending Club has disbursed more than 2,000 CRs of loan to more than 20,000 PIN codes in India, making us India's largest P2P lending platform and one of the fastest growing fintech. At Lending Club, right from fund addition for investment to loan disbursement to EMI collections, return realizations for investors, everything is 100% digital. And we've been heavily using digital banking stacks, using multiple payment gateways, UPI stacks, etc., to provide seamless digital experience to our customers since the early days of Lending Club. So the pace at which Lending Club is growing over the last 5 years, if we had not adopted 100% digital strategy, this would not have been possible at all. growing from a monthly loans in a single digit to a 3-digit loans as on today, in all in crores. Right. This is purely because of our strategy towards moving 100% digital from a physical process that we are following earlier. So even the last two COVID waves were quite heavy on a lot of fintech industries and banking industry, but we were able to withstand that because of the right steps taken in both in the payment and non-payment part of the regular operations, because of which I mean the growth has been quite well, and I can call it a hockey stick growth post pandemic and post the second pandemic for sure, right? And even today, we keep on evaluating multiple avenues to figure out how we can digitize and automate every processes, right? Doesn't matter if it is payment related operations or not, or generic operations in the system, so as to make it more and more accessible for the entire customer sets in and outside of Lending Club, to make sure that everyone is getting the right set of information in the right time using the digital mode. Right. So to conclude, I can tell that Lending Club is one of those few NBFCs in India that is 100% digital, right from onboarding to disbursement to repayment to closure, and for any kind of data exchange. Moving on to the second part of your question, I hope I answered your first question on how Lending Club is using digital technology, right? So regarding adoption of digital payments post-pandemic, see, a lot of interesting things are happening in digital payment space, right? With more than 30% of the world population now being Gen Z, and most of those Gen Z are tech savvy, right? I foresee a lot of biometric authentication, such as fingerprint scanning, face recognition, picking up quite fast in 2022. Other trends could be iris recognition, heartbeat analysis, vein mapping, right? These are the trends that may also catch up very soon. Another trend could be a shift from a traditional card-based model to a secure code, right? Wherein the top three ones, EMV technologies, are working aggressively towards catching up the trend by providing the card in a digital form, right? Session-based unique codes and everything. So I'm myself using a lot of new fintech products and digital card that are allowing seamless checkout without having to use any physical card as such, right? Demand for mobile-based point of sales would also definitely increase. One need not to be tied up with a physical location anymore in order to transact with any customer, right? Today, a smartphone or any kind of smart device can work as your terminal, right? So even Apple has recently announced making its phone work as a POS machine. So the trend will definitely be replicated by other players in the market also. Another trend could be, the use of smart devices and speakers, right? That's also picking up quite well. Already people are have started booking cabs, right? Ordering food through Alexa, Google Home, and other smart devices. And with the top three tech giants like Apple, Google, and Amazon being in this space, and many other new interesting players coming into the market, right? Home automation is definitely going to take care of a lot of mundane routine tasks, and fintech is definitely going to be an integral part of it, right? For example, let's say a smart home with a well-integrated automations in place. Maybe your refrigerator could be able to order and refill the stocks that are not there in your refrigerator in coming years for sure, right? Another could be craze for contactless payment that is quite growing aggressively as of now, such as use of unique codes, QR scan, sound wave based payment, NFC tapping, right, and biometrics. The payment process is going to be much more faster than before. Apps such as Google Pay, Apple Pay, and Paytm, PhonePe, BharatPe, etc., are already innovating to a great extent in it, and there's a lot more to come in further. Even cards are using tapping in these days, right? So most of these are contactless payment anyway. So today, paying utility bills, FASTags, movie, flight tickets, purchase, holiday booking, everything is online, right? Even subsidies are online through e-rupee. And further, once let's say if digital rupee, that is CBDC, comes into play, there is bound to be a significant paradigm shift in the way consumers are going to do contactless payment, right? So it only makes sense for us to reduce the cost of transaction, give real-time visibility, traceability of transactions, and make your accounting much more convenient. That's all. Over to you.
Okay. Great. No, exciting to note that both of you and all of you said that you've moved 100% digital process. You started with phygital and then you moved to 100% digital, and definitely digital payments, UPI has been a key enabler. So that leads us to a question on risk. So Kunal, are there any risk in being too digital?
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity, and the comments that I will share, or views that I will share over here are my personal views. So I'm going to be a spoiled sport in this conversation, because I heard my fellow colleagues talking about 100% digital. How digital payments are supporting them. Then even I am one of the users of digital payment, and preferably today, carrying cash is a big hassle. Rather, it's important to use digital payment. In fact, I was talking to somebody back home, one of my cousins, and we were talking about how in our childhood we used to see our parents, or my father used to carry a heavy wallet, which was very fat in terms of the volume. But today we don't even want to carry a wallet. So that's the change in shift that we've been seeing. I would say, while the shift is of less cash transaction is encouraging, but there are aspects which are vulnerable in nature when it comes to digital transactions. The convenience of digital transactions, which an individual is seeing, is massive in nature. On the other hand, the cost comes in the forms of risk. And so it is important to educate the user time and again. We see a lot of companies, whether it is fintech companies, banks, small banks, payment banks. Everybody is nowadays trying to educate the customer as much as possible on the awareness, or kind of misuse that can happen on the digital payments. So at this juncture, it is important for the consumer to know the do's and don'ts when it comes to the safety of information while transacting digitally. And it is also imperative to understand that large scale adoption of digital will also attract cyber criminals, who obviously wait for these opportunities to explore the vulnerabilities. Now, when we talk about specifically about frauds, or the risks which are there in the digital space, or digital payment space, what we've been observing is that people get too much comfortable while they're using mobile wallets, or banking applications through smartphones, or their iPads, or their laptops. And one of the typical vulnerable areas are Wi-Fi networks. In offices, we see that networks are secured with secure layering of security. While people have been we've been observing in some of the past trends that people are using even public Wi-Fi domains to do transactions, which can be very dangerous to conduct transactions using public Wi-Fi's, or even personal Wi-Fi's which are not secured properly. So that becomes one of the key challenge. The other thing, which is which are the risks which get attracted towards digital payments, are malware applications. And we've been seeing people sending those messages, SMSs, where the message will be very, very attractive, in terms like, you've got a 10,000 rupees cashback on this thing, kindly click on this particular link to avail that. Those kinds of messages are typically a malware message, and people do not understand the authenticity of the source, and they will try and get trapped through the attractive prepositions which are coming their way. The third risk which we obviously keep a close watch, or is on the phishing attack. Using fake emails, fake websites, and various other suspicious communications which are coming. In fact, every on a periodic basis, in fact, every quarter, or sometimes even in once in 6 months, we encourage people to do phishing related mock drills in the organizations, so that we at least get to know what are the level of phishing related vulnerabilities which are there. And in some of the more critical forums, if I may say, because risk management is known to be critical in nature. So in critical forums, we've also discussed, doing phishing related mock drills with some of the customer sample base, so that they understand that, how they can be easily, fooled by some of the messages which are very smartly written. But at the same time, if the customer is not aware and he is not educated, he can be duped for money. The fourth one is, the ransomware issue, which is the, new security issue which is coming in, where, the hackers gain control with the remote access, and then the data of the consumer is basically in the hands of the hacker, and he becomes the victim. And this can block access to device, until a particular sum of money is paid to the ransomware attackers. So these are some of the risks which are there in digital payments. And while I would again repeat myself, I am also a proper digital payment user, and I also propagate digital payments. In fact, as a company, we've been on a journey to reduce our cash payments and other modes of payment, and we slashed them by over 60% in last 3 to 4 years. But at the same time, educating people, sending them do's and don'ts regarding the use and misuse of digital payment, because it's practically a wallet or a money carrier which is in your hand, and the person who can take control of that particular device is somebody whom you don't even know. And it could be a silly mistake which can lead to a lot of bleeding of your own cash. So that's how I would want to sum it up.
Very, very important message, Kunal. I remember when digital payment started, the fear was much more than the reality of the risk. And then now we have reached a stage where the fear has absolutely gone. People just freely use it, but in reality there is still some risk, right? So I think the messages you have communicated in terms of public Wi-Fi, malware usage, and ransomware, these are all real threats, and all of us should be aware and careful about while using digital payments. Yeah. Now, coming to the your organization specifically, which is into consumer finance, how does digital payments impact you? If you can elaborate a bit more, and what are some of the risk management measures that you have taken in your organization?
See, when it comes to consumer finance, and especially when it comes to an organization such as ours, and I was hearing very, very nice words coming out of the Pesh's way, that 100% digital and all this stuff. But the kind of financing that we are doing is also touching a lot of rural sector. And when it comes to a product like tractor finance, some of the and two-wheeler finance in rural sector, we do three-wheeler finance. People at those levels do not understand the full implication or the full utilization, as well as the full potential of digital payments. Again, if you let me give you a practical example. When you go to a urban market, and you take a auto ride, which is a three-wheeler ride, you don't have money in change, you will try and give him a Paytm. You might see he will accept a Paytm, a phone pay, or any other digital QR code will be there. But cut to, if you move to a rural sector where a feeder bus is there, or a feeder auto is there, there's still the applicability of digital payment is still, I would say, a long way to go. And what we did, like I said in my previous conversation, that as an organization, we have tried to bring down our cash component, which we used to collect as a form of EMI from the customer. So that we did a lot of study in terms of understanding the behavior of the customer. Why is he not adopting digital payments when it is propagated by the government? Also, the government of India wants to do a lot of digital economy initiatives, and the Indian government is actually doing also a lot of stuff. So why that thing is coming up? And I would say there are actually 3 or 4 parameters which I would want to sum it up into. The first one is the trust. I still believe that there is a lack of trust when it comes to digital payment, and people believe it is not yet safe enough. And while education is being given to people, do's and don'ts are going. A lot of people are trying to emphasize on it, but there is still a lack of trust when it comes to the perceived security risk of digital payment. The second one is basically habit. Again, I'm talking about those sectors. I'm not largely talking about the urban sector. I'm talking about rural, semi-rural sectors. Habit is basically their lives are centered around paying money in cash and conducting their own purchases in cash only, because that is a traditional way of doing stuff by themselves. And therefore having cash in hand also always gives them that additional comfort and that additional thing in their mind. The third one is is transparency. In a country like us, where the perception is that every transaction could be tracked, and therefore it may invite more scrutiny or higher taxes and all stuff like that. So cash does not have any digital footprint, and therefore people still prefer cash over there, and instead of paying digitally, which can obviously lead to traffic. The third one is basically, or the last one that I would want to highlight, is the friction, which could be related to cash as a value can be transferred immediately, while when it comes to a digital transfer, they still need to do step A, step B, step 3, and sometimes if the network is not clear, the step A, B, and C has to be repeated again. So who gets into all this? Fed up. They get fed up with all this stuff, and they said, "Hey, boss, there is hard cash with me. You take the hard cash, and you move on from there." So that's those are some of the consumer finance related behavioral aspects that we have been observing. While we as an organization have moved completely into digital when it comes to paying to the consumer or paying to the dealers and all that stuff. But when it comes to the payout, the collections from the consumer, we still have a significant amount of money which is coming in the form of cash or non-digital way.
Great, great. Thanks, Kunal, for that very detailed insights. Jatinder, coming back to you, I know you have been working on the SME sector for quite long. So, what is the role of SME in the digital payment space, and then henceforth the overall economical development of the country and on the digital payment space? Jatinder, you're on mute. Okay, looks like his line has dropped. Anybody else wants to take up that question? Okay, we'll wait for Jatinder to come back. Maybe we'll switch to Anil. Anil, if you can share some views on how salary payments and giving early salary. What is the role of digital payments in your business?
Yeah. So basically, like I said, similar to Dipesh, my entire experience is 100% digital. So we definitely never meet our customer, and many a time we never even have any type of phone call or anything. So everything happening on the digital platform itself.
Reply to that, Anil.
Yeah. So let's say even for the let's say different type of product we are saying, where the employee get an option to withdraw the salary in advance. So again, everything happen through the tech platform, and then either the B2B payment transfer will happen. That also will happen automatically. Even let's say somebody asks taking a personal loan, he will do the entire journey online, and then when he click on a disbursement, he can get the money in his account directly, and he can make the payment anytime, any number of times. So we have when we look at the data, we realize there are customers who have borrowed money from us more than 100 times. He take the money, then he repaid, and so we see a lot of transactions happen. And like Kunal rightly said, obviously all this thing has its own risk aspect as well. what we do from our side, we try to cover as much as risk as possible with various different risk matrix. For example, every transaction we also ensure that a device fingerprinting is done, so that if there's a device due to any type of risk, we actually stop that payment and pass on for the manual review. So similarly, even for, let's say, somebody applying for a loan and we feel that there is some sort of the system says that there is some sort of a suspicion, we don't do it manually, we send it for the manual review and then pass on the transaction. So those kind of check and balances are there. And since our customers so far primarily into urban and semi-urban area, I think it's working. But yeah, as we go along and then the rural population comes, there would be different problem to solve on.
Yeah, just Kamal, before we end up, on a lighter note, I was hearing what Anilji just said. Where he quoted that 100% of my customers are digital, and Dipesh just said yes to it as well. And where in our case, 100% of the customers have to be physically touched. One, because it is a asset financing, and
Yes,
second,
yes,
it is also to a different strata of people in the
yeah.
country. So physically somebody will meet also because of the handover of the asset and other stuff as well. But a clear contra where 100%
Yeah.
non-meeting the customer and 100% meeting the customer.
Yeah.
It's purely because of ticket size, Kunal. So it only makes sense in your case to be physical. But sooner or later, you'll definitely move to a digital space.
No,
Yeah,
but it's
it's a
asset
matter.
transfer, right? Asset transfer, right?
Yeah, I think it is asset class more than ticket size, because even we
Right.
do two-wheeler finance, which is lower ticket size. But then
Correct.
because it is backed by asset, somebody has to be there to do some or the other operational activity.
No, I
Correct.
think
Makes sense.
along with the asset, I think what you mentioned, Kunal, I think it's also to do with what kind of financing you're doing. So it is basically formal versus the informal segment. Because the problem in the informal segment is why the touch is high, as I think Kunal is trying to say, is basically the documentation is not there, the banking habits are not there, the digital trail is not there.
Yep.
So when you come to real India, then you'll realize that a lot of these things will have to be construed. You'll have to meet the customer many a times to understand his workflow and the cash that he's generating, what is the revenue actually he's making. So it becomes that much more difficult. But I think that is where the effort of the government is going, and everybody's trying to do that. And I think with the advent of digital foray and the hoopalla which has been created, I'm pretty sure that it's going to take time, but then that time is also coming in, because today if you see WhatsApp is kind of reached everywhere. So everybody is today on WhatsApp, at least that's the first linking point. Now the next challenge is that probably many of us don't understand, is that if you go to the rural part of the country, you will be surprised to see that 70% of the phones are actually not smartphones. So I think that psychology, the cost of the asset, which is the phone. So I think all those things are coming in. And if you look at it from metro tier one, maybe till tier two, the story is great. Tier three and onwards, I think it's going to change, take time. But I think that is where APS, DMT, a lot of the BC network are coming in, and they're also trying to formalize all of these guys. So once they start, like the DBT has come in. Yesterday I was in one of the discussions of account aggregators, where they were debating that should we go to this tier 3, 4, 5 towns. So of course, the account aggregator as a network still for metro and tier one has not been stabilized. So going to that side, so many of these entities are looking at moving to that side. The electronic rupee, there are many things which RBI is trying to do. The discussions are on. So probably we'll be lucky in our lifetime to look at that kind of an advent, and specifically for a country like India, because India, if you go to any other country in the world, and surprisingly, India is doing fantabulously well in terms of the digital advancement in technology. And in fact, if you look at the last 3, 4, 5 years, if you would have started your company 5 years back, which probably Anil would be thinking at that time, how to make it more digital. But today, if you want to start a company, all your the India stack, if you see, the tech stacks are actually available. So if you have a good technology and a good business proposition, you can actually make a great inroads. And look at what happened in pandemic here. If, say, for example, the Swiggy and the Zomato of the world would not have been there, just imagine the world without them. So a lot of good things are happening because of technology. Of course, there are concerns on you know the security and other aspects. But I think as a country, I really don't understand how this country functions, because this country just functions. So the security piece also, I think in last 2 years, a lot of advertisements are coming out from RBI. A lot of case studies are there, but still the crooks will always have the upper hand because they'll be far ahead of technology in terms of breaking it. But I think a lot of now, in the newspaper, in the social media, a lot of those things are coming in. So yes, when you go to the tier 2 and towns below, the security issues will always be there. There is a lot of assisted mode which is being used in today's time to even take out APS or the micro ATM. But that is, I think we'll have to take that step, the leap of faith, and move forward, because ये तो करना पड़ेगा, इसका कोई option नहीं है actually.
Just adding a bit to what Jitendra and Kunal were discussing. So, in fact, in case of Anil and us, right, see, the ticket size is quite small. So, the data points that we have in the digital space helps us build that persona first, right? But if I have to borrow, if I have to ask for 10 CR or 20 CR from a person, I would personally, rent a Bentley and reach out to that person, to build that trust, because there's no enough data points for that person to build that credibility on me. So reverse is the case in your case, Kunal, right? So whatever data points that you may have about a customer, right, in a digital space, in order to do such kind of ticket size loan, right, it will not be enough. So definitely meeting personally makes sense up till now, but sooner or later, I'm sure the path is going to go towards the digital space.
Yeah, Jatinder, coming back to you on the SME sector, we know that they are a very big sector in terms of count, and they're a very important part of the economy. So, how do you think the SME sector is going to be impacted with the digital payments, and how is the economic growth of the country going to be enabled by that?
No, I think MSMEs today are in a much better position where they were about 5 years back. And I'll take 2, 3 examples. If you today look at some of the government initiatives, something like, the CGTMSC, the CGMFU, these are some of the schemes that the government has launched, and these are typically for unsecured loans. Because, digitally, what you can underwrite is an unsecured loan. Secured loans are little difficult to, underwritten, except in case when they are a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, then still you can do that. But for other asset classes, it becomes very, very difficult from a digital aspect. But even MSMEs, if I break it down between the micro and the small, I'm not talking about the medium because that is not in my preview right now. I think the small SME customers are in a much better position, because what has actually happened with them by virtue of their ticket sizes, I think lot of digital imprints are available. And today, if you see whether it is Pro 42 or other technologies available, which can actually give you the bifurcation of the PNL in matter of seconds, and then the bank statement analyzers of Perfios or the other folks which are there. If you do that, that's also there. Then the GST piece is also interlinked. So a lot of those guys have done a lot of good thing. And many companies have come forward, and they're trying to integrate and make sense of the data trail which is available. The problem actually is with the micro segment. In the micro segment, basically what is happening is either they have some digital trail, but then their cost of I would say lending is very high, very, very high, or they on the other side where they don't have a digital trail at all. So again, in both these situations, पैसा जो ये माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज को चाहिए, जो एक्चुअल अपनी, जो अगर हम बोलें कि हिंदी में अगर अपनी जान है, सो इनको वो पैसा इतनी इजीली अवेलेबल नहीं है. इट इज नॉट अवेलेबल at the cost where they should get it, because of they don't have a digital trail. Similarly, if a guy has a digital trail of the similar class, he will get at least a differential of 4 to 5% in terms of the ROI. But having said that, I think the journey has started. And today, many people, because of the pandemic also, I would say one of the reasons is, people want to get into technology interventions. If I would have spoken to my credit folks about 5 years back, so, one of the very interesting thing when I go back and ask them, what do you take when you meet a customer? So one of the, and this on a lighter note, one of the credit managers, told me, sir, wo jo aankh mein dekh ke jo samajh mein aata hai customer. Now, which is a right way to look at it, because many of our customer sets are of a segment where you have to meet them to understand. But I'm saying today the class of credit guys are also changing. They are saying, sir, We can do, the geo tagging of this guy. We can take pictures, and we can take real time pictures. We have banking of this guy. Now today with UPI coming in, what has actually happened? UPI has actually a lot of digital trail because of UPI is coming in. Now whether that is 20%, 10%, or 30% of his total revenue, that is the smartness of the the scorecard that you're building. But a lot of these things are coming in. So today, I'm also looking at a shift in terms of underwriting, where people are okay to assume one or two factors, which is basis their experience. I would say those are judgmental numbers. Balance are all coming in, and there are third party integrators which can give a lot of data inputs from that perspective. So a lot of people are trying to automate underwriting, and in many places it is already there, and with a flavor of some manual intervention here and there. So I would say it's a good start from that perspective. I think the MSMEs are the backbone of the country. Today we talk about some 60 million number. Ultimately, we are only serving some 3, 4, or 5 million customers, which are in the vicinity of metro tier 1 and tier 2, no, not even tier 2. Uh, Another thing I would like to mention here, which I'm feeling very strongly now, I think supply chain as a product is a very interesting product as far as the SMEs are concerned. Today what we are trying to do, we solve their short term working capital problem with either a business loan of 3 years, or we try to give them a loan against property which is for a 7 years or a 10-year kind of a structure, whereas the requirement was of 30 days. So we are giving them a bad product for a requirement which is a simple invoice discounting kind of a product. But the problem in that product is of course multifold, because there is a manufacturer, then there is a stockist, then there is a master distributor, then there is a distributor, and then comes the retailer. If I'm talking about the FMCG segment, so there many companies are there now, which we are also talking to. They're coming out with solutions, and a lot of digital imprints are there, and they're doing a reasonable good job, because they're taking some kind of an FLDG from the distributor, they're passing on the FLDG to the lender. So I think there are about 8, 9 companies which I know, which have been doing good job. They've been able to do some 2, 3 thousand crores of disbursal in last 2, 3 years. So that gives me a lot of comfort and confidence that yes, this is what really these MSMEs, and the micro guys require. And there are people who are putting money. The PE firms are backing those guys with a lot of good capital, which needs to be deployed there. So I think that is one interesting product set which should be able to get these guys up the curve a little faster versus the typical BL or loan against property. That's my view.
Perfect, Jatinder. Yes, customized products or specialized product for this sector needs to be developed based on the new data trails and all that are being now being created. Yeah. Now we are running short of time, but Dipesh, I know you have to go. But just quick thoughts on digital currency. It was one of the topics covered in the budget. Okay, I think he has already dropped. Okay. But anyone of you who wants to take it up? Okay, he's back. Yeah, Dipesh, I was just quickly asking your views on digital currency. It was covered in the budget also. So, as part of this year, what do you think? Are we going to see RBI releasing a digital currency in the country, and how it's going to impact your business?
So I'm sure there will be some white paper coming out on this. I mean, it's still quite an early phase, right? So not too much to talk about, but the way it is being portrayed, right? So it will definitely hold a value compared to the other type of asset class that are available out there. So it is technically a bank managing it in a entirely digital space compared to what we have as a fiat currency. So definitely, I mean, keeping Kunal's point at one side, right? If digital currency can come into existence, there will be a good traceability as on today, right? The challenge of using physical money, right? But with the mindset changing for people out there, right? So today, just on a lighter note, when Kunal said that his father in earlier days used to carry a fat wallet, right, in order to move here and there. But today, I'm sure not many of us would be comfortable even touching the cash that comes out of other person's, fetching it from different part of their body, right? Because you think, hey, this needs to be sanitized, so you're not comfortable shaking hands. So adoption could definitely be well for the digital currency. But I mean, we are yet to see how it is going to come and what is the shape, size, or the structure around it. I mean, that is something that would be too early to comment on.
I will just add on what Dipesh said. So basically, I mean, I think this is a really good initiative, obviously, from the RBI and government point of view, since now every transaction that we do have, somewhere it is managed backed by a cash, right? That means somebody is maintaining that cash, be it a bank or whoever, right? So I think this will definitely brings a lot of efficiency in the overall ecosystem, the overall banking system. That means some of the transaction cost will get reduced. We will get a newer way of integration. While government is saying it will not use the Bitcoin technology, blockchain technology, it will be used for all these things. But end of the day, it will be high level, it will be blockchain technology that will enable integration with various different forms. Because UPI was one of the innovation, then it will create another level of innovation, but the integration will become much seamless and much easier across different partnerships. And even the back operation will get much more optimized, since there's no need to actually moving cash from one place to other place. So I think that is going to bring a lot of new innovation. But yeah, I think it will take time. It will take, I think, couple of years for sure.
Okay, okay. But at least, I mean, it's the next, I would say, excitement.
Yes.
After UPI, I think UPI has already kind of become so
Yes.
popular. But I think the industry is waiting for how digital currency is going to affect the change.
Correct. So I think Jitinder mentioned earlier that India today, right, is doing the volume of UPI transactions is so tremendous that globally the entire global fintech ecosystem has an eye on the way India has innovated, fast and safe transaction, right? So with that kind of innovation brought by the government, they have created an excellent impression in the market. So I'm sure all the financial institutions out there, in and outside of India, are looking forward to digital currency by the RBI, right? So, in fact, some of them are even fearing it, to be honest.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, quite exciting. So I think we'll just check if there are any questions from the audience here. Sandeep?
Yes, sir. So, let me just ask you. We already discussed this a couple of panels back, so I'll re-ask the question to the panelists here that we received the questions, especially dedicated to the digital currency. One, what do you think should be the next step for the government when it comes to the digital currency? How soon, if they want to launch it within a year or two, what is the next step that the government should take up, and the role of private players in in setting up this and helping out government? If anybody could like to answer, or all of you can throw some light on it.
I think first of all, I mean, this could be a very big change from the entire financial ecosystem point of view. So first, government RBI will primarily work with the all the financial players, especially banks and all, how the transaction is happening. So that network would need to be created so that the generation of currency and the distribution of currency can be streamlined, right? And then from the consumer facing side, right, there would be a right level of interface will be created, something like you can just for the thinking perspective and consider like a cryptocurrency. There is no relation with the cryptocurrency, but that's how the interface will be created. Those interface will enable various type of transactions which can happen at a much lesser cost compared to what's happening even today. So for example, UPI, while it's free today, but since the underlying cost of UPI is still there, and let's say many of the players even thinking like, let's say after 20 transaction, can we have, let's say, 5 rupees cost per transaction. So I think this digital currency will, further reduce the cost of transaction and will create a new way of, innovation in the market.
Yeah, just to share my view, Sandeep, on this point. See, I was also involved in the when UID was being, created, and I really appreciate appreciated the way that the government and all the institutions went about. They created like working groups, right? Because I think digital currency, just by the name of itself, is equally big to UID, right? So I suggest that RBI, the government, should create these working groups, get people, like us involved in various discussions, come up with a white paper like Dipesh mentioned, get the views, and then arrive at how the digital currency should work. So at least for this year, this is what I would expect the government and RBI to do. And I'm sure all of us on the panel and all the people in the industry would be very keen to give their inputs in those forums.
In fact, just to add my submission here, so since we are a research-based media organization, so we've been doing this for the education sector for quite some time now, and now since we're entering into the BFSI sector, we would be, if there are any kind of white papers or any kind of research or any kind of, talks that any of you, any of the speakers or any of the persons that you know of also would want to do it, we have our platform ready, both in the print, digital, and the video format. We can have a lot of conversations. In fact, our strategic partner, iLounge Media and the Gov Connect, are really connected to the secretaries of various, state and central governments. We can get them on board. You can suggest us on what needs to be or who we need to call on panel so that we can, get those speakers on board and try to create some kind of a content or maybe a white paper depending on the same. So that is our submission. The second question that we had received on our chat box is, safety. How big a question is safety when it comes down to the digital currency or maybe the cryptos that we also have? So it's still a little volatile out there. How do you think? What are the measures that in terms of safety procedures when you're looking at a digital currency? Is the other question that we wanted to ask.
Kunal, Jatin, you want to take it up, Jatin?
No, I think the answer is very simple, on these. Whether it is digital currency or whether it is digital payments, we have to also understand, appreciate the fact that today, even in our own mobile phones, there are multiple apps which have already been downloaded. And we go to multiple websites, whenever you're browsing and, your wife is not there on a lighter note and you have some time around, so you just do the fiddling around. And meantime, like in WhatsApp also I've seen, I stopped doing it completely now, but what I've figured out on WhatsApp, if anything comes in with any link, the tendency 99.9% is to click on that because it's a video. How do you know whether it's not a Trojan or a worm or a virus which has not been trying to install on your mobiles? Till now, what has happened actually is that you've always heard about attacks on the computers and all, and now if you see in last two I would say about 3 years, the attacks on the mobiles are rampantly increasing. And the reason is very simple, because today everything is on a mobile. I don't need a wallet, I don't need anything actually, I don't need my ID card, nothing at all I need. Everything is available in my mobile phone. So I think the security first starts with our my own internal knowledge and my restriction to go to multiple sites and do all kind of stuff. I should be restricting myself completely. Only 1 or 2 apps which are required, very very great, is something that I should do. Somebody spoke about public domains. If I'm sitting on a railway station or I'm sitting on a in an air lounge or whatever, I just don't even think. I just open the network and I just start doing my stuff. And it's not required actually, because you don't know what kind of malware will come into your mobile or onto your laptop. And your laptop typically when you travel are your office laptops. So the amount of information which is available there is also very humongous. So digital currency, I would say, is a very long-term shot that we are taking. But I think basic, hygiene factors, if you're able to follow, then it will be great. But with digital currency coming into picture next 2, 3, 4 years time, I think the hackers will be, laughing around and saying, "Oh wow, something new is coming, and that's going to be, amazing." And I need to develop some product, and those guys would be working right now. Before we can come out with some, antivirus or whatever we call them. So I think it's going to be a difficult world. There is no denying the fact. So positives are very very awesome on this, but yes, there will be I would say socially we all have to put our bit together to appraise the customer. Like as a FinCare SFB, we also have our mobile apps and many other stuff. We send stuff on WhatsApp and all, but it's a conscious effort from our side that we use still some paper communication with the customer to appraise them, that they do not use your password and give it to somebody and all that stuff. So I think this looks very mundane, but I think it's very very important, because once you see a person earning some 30-40K and 1-2 lakh getting swiped off his account, it's a very dangerous situation. So I think it is a moral responsibility of everybody here right now on the speaker panel to do that. Beyond that, I think it will be too difficult to comprehend at this moment.
So, as a layman, just wanted to, get it up. So, I've been a person who had been, working for around 20 years now, and we started off with, uh, the technology front where we used to charge a lot of US clients on, for fixing their computers. So that's how it started. But one problem that one benefit that the people, especially with the US and the other foreign countries, have is the banks have a better control over retrieving the money back from the account if it is reported back. But we don't see that usually in Indian context. Whether somebody swiping off the account, but the banks has the complete transaction from where the account or where the money has gone to. They can, why can't they just retrieve the money back? Is that just as a layman, answer for the people who have been watching, is what we wanted to ask.
So the process might be a bit tedious, but the provision is there, Sandeep. There had been an instance wherein, I remember a friend of mine did an incorrect transaction of a larger chunk through a bank to another transaction, another individual, right, which was not supposed to be intended. The procedure was a bit lengthy, but then that provision is there even in India. Let's be hopeful and optimistic about it. Yeah. I mean, at one side we look at the stacks of UPI, right, wherein we want within fraction of seconds to have a certain kind of transaction. Other side, we expect those retrace and callback. I think that is just like it's just like two sides of a coin, right? Wherein while looking at one, the other might be a little bit compromised, right? But if you can prove and tell a bank or your financial institution that this is not an intended transaction or was an attempt of fraud, I'm sure the same can be brought back. It's not a challenge.
All right.
I can say very well from being from the banking fraternity, the process and the I would say the procedures are very clearly laid down. Today, the digital track of a currency outflow or inflow is available, so there is no denying that fact. Okay, so the only question is that do you have your own digital trail in terms of all requisite information, and have you been able to inform the bank at the right time? Okay, so if you have done that, then there are provisions under the RBI whereby that money can be trailed, and you can, if the claim is legitimate, it will take time. It's not like that you will come and claim and and I will just look at your PAN number and say, oh yeah, this is your money and I'll give it to you back. That's not what happens, but it is there. Today, if you see, there are trillions of transactions which actually happens on UPI trail. Okay, and in UPI trail, it is not that everything will go through. So many cases go through and many cases fall back. So once they fall back, please understand at the back end there is a good amount of data trail and technology available where the money comes back to you, and that too in split seconds. Because you, if I may say, as a customer, will be so impatient that the money has not gone in, it has debited from my account, and in some time or sometimes in 24 hours, the money comes back into your account. So there is a backend team. There are fraud risk management systems which are there with all the banks, and they keep on monitoring all the systems, so when they avoid. But still, if there's something has happened, if you have the complete data trail and a history with you, legitimate, 100%, I've seen cases being dragged on for about 30 odd days, because sometimes what actually happens, these fraudsters, what they will do, they will move the money trail from one bank to the other. It never happens that the fraud has happened with X bank and the money is only going to the Y bank. It doesn't happen that way. It will go to multiple accounts, and from there what will happen is the money will be taken out in cash in case the money has gone. If the money has not gone in for whatever reason, it will be available in multiple accounts. Now what actually happens is when bank A will contact bank B, then bank B, the procedure is that it will have to account for all the money trails in all the 7, 8, 10 accounts. So now to get in touch with all those guys, if those are bogus accounts, which means you will not be able to find anybody. Now the procedure says if you're not able to contact them, email them, then practically you're supposed to go and visit their place because you had taken the KYC in opening the account. So it may take time, but the answer will be available. So you'll have to be a little patient. I don't think in today's time, something is not traceable until it's a very very big organized fraud, then I can't comment, but otherwise आपको मिलेगा. तो ऐसा कोई सोचने की जरूरत नहीं है कि if I'm in US, so my money will be back in some 30 seconds, and in India it will not happen. No, I think we are at par, and we are I would say multiple times ahead of those folks today. Very well, you can take that pride. Those guys are today in 1970s in terms of technology. We have already crossed 2021, and in next 5 years time, and look at the amount of scale. यार, the complete full Europe को पकड़ लेना तो इंडिया बनता है. इतने लोग तो हम रोज ट्रांजेक्शंस करते हैं यहाँ पर. So I think we need to take pride in that. I don't see that as a challenge. So you can very well tell your viewers nothing to worry on that aspect.
Sure. Sure. I think this was such an amazing panel. Any last submissions? I would ask
Yeah.
the moderator, sir.
Sure. No, thanks. Thanks a lot, all the panelists. I think we started with 100% digital adoption, and then we had opposite view saying that you're 100% physical. So we have heard both the sides. Then we talked about the risks involved in digital payments, how we still need to be careful while being fully enthusiastic in adopting it. Then we talked about the SME sector, how the digital trail is being created, and how maybe they will be brought into the formal lending ecosystem from this digital trail being created. And then we talked a lot about digital currency, which is the next hot topic. So really very, very interesting. And thanks again to all the panelists. Really appreciate your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for
Bye.
this amazing panel. Before we leave, I would like to thank all the speakers for throughout the day. We had some really, really amazing discussions talking about aspects of the banking and finance sector. Without further ado, I would like to bid adieu to all you wonderful viewers of Universal Mentors Association. You've been on YouTube, we've heard you, we've taken your questions, and we'll be back with more of such events in the banking, finance, and the education sector very, very soon. And with this, we are drawing close to the end of the day for our first BFSI Digital Virtual Summit. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more such amazing events. Thank you. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you.